Mandy McCallister got pregnant, got thrown out by her parents, and ended up in a Texas town she never planned to live in, building a life out of whatever was left. The show calls that a love story. What it actually is a quiet demolition. Here's what nobody talks about. Mandy is framed from the beginning as the person this story is happening to. She gets pregnant, loses her housing, moves in with a family she barely knows, and gives birth in a city that isn't hers, surrounded by people who weren't in her plans. And the audience watches all of it and thinks, yeah, but at least she has Georgie. The love story is real, but if you actually follow what this show is doing with Mandy McCallister underneath the romance, you start to see something that the laugh track is working very hard to bury. This isn't a love story about a girl who got lucky, but about a woman who lost everything, traded one impossible situation for another, and is expected to be grateful for the upgrade. Let me start at the beginning, because the beginning matters more than people give it credit for. Mandy comes from money. Not Cooper family money, not Medford money. Actual money. The McCallisters are comfortable. Her mother, Audrey, wears the kind of outfits that require maintenance. They have opinions about things like table settings and where people went to college. Mandy is educated. She has a degree. She had a trajectory that looked nothing like a tire shop in Medford, Texas, and a Cooper family dinner with Meemaw making side comments about her hair. And then she gets pregnant, and her parents throw her out. Not reluctantly, not after a long, painful conversation where her father cried and her mother said things she later regretted. They made a decision and they executed it. Mandy, who by every external measure was the daughter they built, the one with the degree and the future they planned, was suddenly not worth the embarrassment. Out, done. Go figure it out. That detail is not a throwaway. That detail is the entire foundation of who Mandy is in this show, because everything she does afterward, every compromise she makes, every family dinner she shows up to, every moment she swallows her instincts and adjusts to a life that doesn't quite fit her, all of it traces back to that one decision her parents made. She learned at the worst possible moment that love in her family was conditional, and the condition was image, and she failed it. So she moves in with Connie Tucker, Georgie's grandmother, a woman she met maybe twice. And here's the thing that the show plays for comedy, but is actually kind of horrifying when you sit with it. Mandy has nowhere else to go. She is a college-educated adult woman in her mid-20s who is completely without options because the people who were supposed to be her safety net looked at her and decided the net didn't apply here. That's the ground floor of Mandy McCallister. Not a girl swept up in a whirlwind romance. A woman with no floor, building one out of whatever's available. Now let's talk about what she's building it with. Because Georgie Cooper is a good man. I genuinely believe that, and the show earns it. He shows up, he tries, he takes responsibility in ways that a lot of 19-year-olds would not. He loves Mandy in the specific, concrete, physical way that certain people love, by doing things instead of saying them. He buys the tire shop, he provides, he stays. But here's what Mandy is also getting when she gets Georgie. She's getting Mary Cooper. She's getting Meemaw's running commentary. She's getting a family system that has its own gravity, its own rules, its own very specific hierarchy. And she came in at the bottom of it pregnant and broke. She doesn't have the years of history that earned anyone else their place in that house. She doesn't have the childhood memories. She doesn't have the shared language. She shows up, visible, unavoidable, the reason Georgie's life just changed permanently, and she has to build credibility from scratch with people who are not expecting her and did not choose her, and she does it. That's what gets me. She actually does it. She wins Mary over, not by being charming, but by being present, by showing up to dinner and not running, by learning which arguments are worth having and which ones to let slide, by becoming, slowly and without a manual, The daughter-in-law Mary didn't ask for and eventually can't imagine being without. But there's a cost to that kind of integration. There always is, and the show almost never names it. Mandy's identity, the one she had before Georgie, is basically dismantled over the course of this show. Her college degree doesn't come up much. Her ambitions before Medford don't come up much. The person she was planning to become when she graduated does not appear in the narrative because the narrative has somewhere else to be. The show needs her to be Georgie's wife. It needs her to be Cece's mother. It needs her to be the younger, funnier foil to Audrey's rigidity and the warm counterweight to Mary's intensity. It needs her to be a lot of things, and Mandy does all of them. What she doesn't get to be is unfinished. She doesn't get to be still figuring it out. She doesn't get to be grieving the life she lost, because that grief would slow down a show that has a lot of plot to get through. So it mostly goes unacknowledged. The audience is supposed to understand that she chose this, that she loves Georgie, that the family is real, and that's enough. It's not enough. Because here's the thing about choosing something under duress. When your alternative is no floor at all, choosing the floor that's available is not the same as choosing freely. Mandy didn't pick Medford. She didn't pick the Cooper family dinner table. She picked survival, and survival came packaged with all of it. And there's a version of this story where she looks up 5 years in and realizes she has a life that fits her like a coat that belonged to someone else. It's warm, it's functional, it mostly works, but it was never hers. That's where the divorce comes from. I don't think it's a dramatic falling out. I don't think there's a villain. I think it's two people who got together in a crisis and discovered that crisis is not a foundation. Georgie held the family together through sheer will, and she watched him do it, and she loved him for it. But a man who is holding everything together with his bare hands at 19 does not have hands free for a marriage at 23. He is always carrying something. And Mandy was strong enough to carry herself through the worst year of her life, but she needed a partner eventually. Not a provider, a partner. And Georgie, for all his extraordinary qualities, has been shaped by a family that trained him to give and never stop. His worth was defined by his usefulness from the moment his father died. He doesn't know how to be someone's equal because he's always been someone's lifeline. That's not a character flaw, that's a wound. But wounds untreated become patterns, and patterns become distance, and distance becomes the end of something that was genuinely real. Now here's where it gets complicated in a way I wasn't ready for when I started thinking about this. Audrey McCallister comes around, the mother who threw her daughter out, who chose appearances over her own grandchild, who treated Georgie as an acceptable but disappointing consolation prize until he bought her husband's business and suddenly became someone worth tolerating. That Audrey starts to soften, and the show frames this as growth, as a mother learning to love her daughter again. And maybe it is, but if you're Mandy, what do you do with that? Your mother's acceptance came with a price tag, and Georgie paid it. Audrey doesn't warm to him because he's a good person. She warms to him because he's useful, because he solved a financial problem, because he made the business headache go away. And somewhere underneath all of that reconciliation, Mandy has to know it. She's smart enough to know it. She read that transaction clearly the moment it happened. So now she's caught between two families, both of whom love her conditionally, both of whom are easier, when she doesn't make things complicated, and she is the kind of person who makes things complicated by simply being perceptive enough to see what's happening around her. That's an exhausting place to live. Emily Osment plays all of this without ever stating it directly. That's what makes the performance interesting. There are moments where Mandy looks at a room, at Mary praying, at Audrey performing warmth, at Georgie working too hard and sleeping too little, and you can see her doing the math, calculating, adjusting, filing something away for later. She is always the smartest reader of the room, and she is almost never the one who gets to act on what she reads. The title of the show told you everything from the beginning. First marriage. The writers did not hide it. They put it right there in enormous letters on a CBS promo, and most people just decided to believe it means something hopeful. It doesn't mean something hopeful. It means this specific love story, this real and genuine and earned love story, ends. And then maybe it comes back. But first, it ends. And when it does, Mandy will be the one who closes the door on a life she built from nothing, in a city she didn't choose, with a family she earned the hard way. She'll walk away from the tire shop she watched Georgie bet everything on, from the house where Cece took her first steps, from Mary's kitchen and Mima's poker nights, and all the things that became home without her permission. She came in with a positive pregnancy test and nowhere to go. She leaves, if she leaves, with a daughter, a divorce, and a clearer idea of what she's worth than anyone in her life ever gave her credit for understanding. That's not a failure. That's just the truth about what it costs to survive your 20s in a life that wasn't designed for you, with people who are doing their best and still not quite enough. Mandy McCallister never got to be the main character of her own story. She was always the love interest, the complication, the outsider who became an insider, the first wife. The whole architecture of this franchise put her in service of someone else's arc. But if you watch carefully, she's the one holding the whole thing up. She's the emotional spine of a show that doesn't know how to say so. The show named itself after her. It just buried the lead.